Hi, are you a security or IT professional working in the health sector? If so, this is important for you. Secure by Design is coming to change how you do projects for the health sector and indeed across government more widely. So what is Secure by Design? Well, the MOD defines it as securing capabilities through continual risk management. The Cabinet Office, which is mandating it across all of government, defines it as a series of principles, which again includes implementing risk management and assigning ownership of those risks across your organisation. So how do you go about implementing Secure by Design and the Secure by Design principles? Well, let's have a look at these principles here. There are 10 of them, and they start with creating responsibility for risk. Number 3, adopting a risk-driven approach, and some other ones that you're probably looking at and thinking, I'm doing a lot of these things already. Now, it gets more complicated though, because the Cabinet Office also says, well, there's loads of activities that sit behind that, and then there's a tracker which tracks how well you're doing all those things. And this starts to look at that. I'm not going to read out all of these, but you can see there's a large list of things that you need to do. And in fact, behind each one of these, there are more activities that you need to do. So what's the really big mistake that lots of people make? They view this as extra work, as things to task them up with, and it just requires a lot of extra investment, work, and it's probably already duplicating things that you're already doing. And then that becomes a bit of an imposition. So, well, I'm already trying to improve security. Why is the Cabinet Office telling me to do it in a different way? And then the big mistake that people then make is treat this as something, oh, Cabinet Office has told me I need to do Secure by Design, and even though they've said it's not a compliance activity, it is really. I just need to do what I'm being told, and I need to tick all their boxes. Now that's a big mistake. Why is this a big mistake? It's because you end up being compliance driven and ticking their boxes rather than doing the underlying work. At worst, this can be a dishonest activity where you're just saying, yeah, we're doing this, leave us alone, go and pick on somebody else whilst we get on with managing our own problems. At best, it can sometimes distract from the real work that you actually need to do to tick these boxes. So what should you do instead? Well, the good news is, in the health sector, we're already mandating the DSTP CAF. That stands for Data Security and Protection, and the CAF stands for Cyber Assurance Framework. This is something as an NCSE standard, the UK National Cyber Security Centre. And as part of GovAssure, this is already mandated, not just in health, but across government already. So here's the thing, you can save a lot of work and effort by continuing your work to align with the cyber assessment framework. And then as a bonus, you also demonstrate how well you're doing Secure by Design. It turns it around slightly. So instead of doing CAF and Secure by Design and having competing and sometimes conflicting activities and treating both as a burden on you that gets in the way of doing what you work, you turn it round and say, actually, we're doing really good work so that we can align ourselves with the cyber assessment framework and then also demonstrate how well you're doing the CAF. So what do all these Secure by Design principles become when you look at the CAF? Well, here you have a big list of tasks for the CAF. Now, those, again, it's a big list, but actually it's stuff that you should be doing already. And then we can simplify this actually. And this is some dummy data that I've done for another organisation. So obviously I'm not sharing their information, but you can see here in this spidergram where this dummy organisation has, and you can see some very low scores around the key axes. So there are 5 key axes. The first is managing risk, which again is a key principle of Secure by Design. And most organisations I've come across in government do this quite badly. And so there's no shame to be said that if you're not doing this well yet and you're not mature, that's okay. This won't affect only cybersecurity. This means if you do this well, you'll start to deliver projects more successfully. The second one is protecting against cyber attacks and data breaches. Now, typically people are already starting to do this a bit better. Thirdly, detecting cybersecurity events, and you know when you've been hacked. Fourthly, minimizing the impact of that. And that sometimes is a bit of a culture change, because a lot of people say, oh, there's no risk of us being hacked, therefore we don't do the work to minimize the impact if we are hacked. So that's again a cultural shift there. And finally, the bit that the DSTP CAF adds to the standard CAF, which is all about using and sharing data securely, appropriately and freely when you do need to share it. So that's all about getting more efficiency in health, so we can all learn from each other's experience with medical data without compromising the rights of individuals to their privacy. So we make people healthier without giving away their private details. So that overall is the CAF, and you can see in this spidergram how we've actually achieved there versus a target. Now the target isn't always to be perfect. Sometimes the target is simply to be a bit better than you are, so you can start to not set unrealistic expectations for yourself. But here you see this. Now you can actually drill down into these principles. So there are 5 objectives, and each objective is supported by a number of principles. The ones that typically across government you will see at the lowest levels are actually the first 3: governance, risk management and asset managers. Usually quite often in governance we see behaviours where particularly senior leaders don't think the rules apply to them, or that the proper governance is applied at lower levels, and there's a sort of exception process for seniors. Quite often key policy documents are missing, or even more common, key policy documents are in place but they're completely ignored. They're beautiful policies but nobody actually uses them. The risk management is also often a gap where people might do risk management, or they say they're doing risk management, but they haven't understood risks properly. And I've got a separate video on how to develop risks so that they include business impacts. And thirdly, assets. What actually is it that you are defending as a cybersecurity person? Or if you're a business leader, what's important to you to deliver what you're being paid to do? So those 3 things are really important principles, but there are lots of those, and you can measure your progress against those as part of a standard CAF. Now here's the magic bit. As part of doing that work, you can then automatically see where you are with Secure by Design without doing any additional work. So all the work that you should be doing anyway isn't created additionally by Secure by Design, you just see. So this graph here shows where you are against the SBD principles. Now again, when you do this, don't be ashamed if you get very low scores. This will be very typical. You'll see a lot of zeros against a lot of the principles. That actually shows that you're being honest about where you're starting from, rather than trying to pretend that you're doing brilliantly. And realistically, most organizations will take several years to get good scores on this. It's not going to happen overnight. But as you can see, SBD, first principle is adopt a risk-driven approach. That in itself is a very difficult exercise, but you'll find that it will underpin and enable all the other things. So that when you start to use the Secure by Design tracker for projects and systems, they'll automatically get high scores, or be enabled to get high scores, because you've put the organizational processes and underpinnings in place. The big mistake to avoid is simply giving them a tracker and starting to track these projects, because what you'll find is they'll all fall over in the same place. You'll ask them to say, have you got a risk appetite? Well, if the organization hasn't done the right work to enable a usable and sensible risk appetite that actually facilitates projects happening, they will all trip up over that, and they'll come back to the cybersecurity or the IT department and complain, and you'll be back in the situation where IT or cybersecurity is seen as a blocker, not an enabler. Conversely, do the work around the CAF and those principles, do the hard work so that your organization starts to adopt a risk-driven approach where business impact is the key part of that risk. Then you'll see real benefits in projects, and projects will start to go more smoothly. They won't just be more secure, they'll be more successful as well. So where has this worked already? So you've seen health examples here where sometimes projects have not had the money, and by adopting this and by being clear about the impact, actually conversations have already started to be enabled to say, oh, maybe we should think about this differently. Maybe our frustration where all budgets are being cut, including cybersecurity, actually by giving a risk-driven approach, business leaders or senior leaders can see where they should be spending money and why, rather than just arbitrarily aligning budget or giving it to their pet projects, as though a scientific delivery program is more important than cybersecurity. Well, actually, a scientific delivery program without cybersecurity is possibly not a scientific program, because it may not deliver when you need it, or you may not have confidence that the data is even correct. Similarly, we've done this for the Ministry of Defence. I worked on one project, a multi-billion-pound project, but didn't have a good security. It was in a terrible place and they didn't even know what was on the network. And by approaching this from a principles-based approach, using something similar to CAF, in fact, they use the NIST cybersecurity framework, which gives some similar feeds, and looking at risk management, they were able to identify that they didn't really know what they wanted this network to do. They hadn't been clear to the business leaders what they were trying to achieve. So actually, by being clear about the assets, not just in the physical sense, but actually what is supposed to travel over across this network and what impact will it have on our business, and in fact their defence of the nation in that case, they were able to save a £1 billion project to improve the nation's critical defence network to be more secure. Now, not all projects are that valuable, but some of them will be. But whether your project is big or small, this approach will help you to make your projects more secure. And as a bonus, demonstrate how well you're complying with Secure by Design principles. My name's George Bathurst. If you need any more help or advice from me, please don't hesitate to ask or get in touch with my company, BNet. Thank you.